Tape recorder's running, right? Tape recorder's running.
Hey, Steve.
Hello, Brett Starr.
How you doing, man?
Doing good. It's
good to
finally
see you.
fall.
Yeah, it's finally fall, and we got a cold front in Fort Worth as well, and the temperature dropped by at least 7
To
degrees.
85 degrees.
It'll be that way for a day or so, but how's everything in St. Louis?
It is beautiful. It's turning into crisp fall weather. Temperatures in the almost in the 40s last night.
Oh, that's nice.
So during the day, I think it's going to be in the mid 60s today. So getting to be fall baseball weather. There's a lot of talk about Mr. Albert Pujols here in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. He had a few home runs.
Yeah, he's had a few. He's kind of a thing.
Yeah. Cool, man. Why don't we jump right into it? Let's talk about the economy. What's going on with the economy? How is it impacting work tech? How are we seeing it manifest in terms of funding, in terms of layoffs? I know that for me, it seems that the temperature has been turned up on reporting about, the potential for recession based on the rapid interest rate hikes. And just some other, kind of signals that are, kind of going off out there in the world. And I remember, multiple moments like this. This one, of course, is a little bit different because it's a post-pandemic economy. So kind of all bets are off in terms of, what lever you pull to do what and, what can we expect from human behavior, which is the foundational form of economics, which we often forget. But you do see some of those same signals going off that we saw during the global financial crisis. You see big layoffs. You see big, conservative financial moves. You see companies missing their earnings forecast by a significant amount. So it does seem like there's, just been a lot more hand-wringing around the economy. And we always point out that work tech is in some ways a microcosm of the broader tech community, in other ways not. But I think this is one of those moments where, just kind of giving people some insight into what's going on out there and what we're seeing would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that, especially kind of coming out of HR tech, it's been, this has obviously been on my mind a lot this week because of that. And then when you're kind of, looking at the headlines, there's not a lot of good news right now. The public markets crossing into bear market territory. We've got everything kind of going on with Ukraine. There's a lot of concerns about what this winter is going to hold. You have the CEOs of Google, Facebook, and Apple really kind of sounding the alarms, trying to set expectations around earnings. And so I think that there's definitely a sense that we're not headed toward a soft landing or a soft recession. It could get ugly. And so, and just the conversations I had at HR Tech, I think people were generally positive, kind of broadly, in talking to kind of investment bankers and the finance class. I think that they feel good about HR tech, but like work tech and the prospects long term, but there's definitely a lot of concern about the near term, next 3 to 6 months not being good. And so I don't know if that jives with what you're hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of times when I talk to folks, everything's going great for them. It's going fine for them, but they're, reacting to what, they perceive as happening to other organizations or, what could possibly happen to their demand or their pipeline or whatever. I think I have talked to, some organizations that have seen they've lost pipeline value because of basically people just wanting to wait and see what happens for the rest of the year. And so I do think that there's just a lot of uncertainty right now that, as always, is going to lead to pent up demand because, the the facts are that we still have a lot of work to do, post pandemic around the employee experience and in work tech. And those issues don't go away just because the labor market loosens up a little bit, or just because, X, Y, or Z. And so the products and services that people are bringing to market in work tech are, more necessary than they've ever been. They're more in demand than they've ever been. I do think that there's probably going to be, some short run, just people holding on to their, cash a little bit, and some deals are going to slow down. But then I think it'll, at some point, all that pent up demand will be unleashed, and this will just be a blip.
That's kind of how I feel too. I mean, it's clear that in the near term that, there are active deals that are slowing down with the brands I'm talking to. Sales cycles are getting longer. So yeah, I think that there is some conservatism about hanging on to cash. In terms of just sort of buying activity at the show, the vendors I was talking to, they were having a good show. But again, I think that the buying behavior at HR Tech is definitely sort of like, more middle funnel activity rather than top of the funnel. It's not a bunch of people walking around wondering, what do I buy? It's people showing up and saying, I want to talk to these 5 vendors. And, I have, an active project in the pipeline. So, it's going to be an interesting rest of the year. And probably through the winter as well. But I think that long term, I mean, even if, unemployment in the U.S. has to go from 3.5%, I think I read something that it needs to really get inflation under control would take, more like 6.5% unemployment. I mean, even if that's the case, I don't think that that's going to change the dynamic for in-demand skill sets, and it's not going to change the need for employers to be competitive in acquiring and retaining talent.
No, I totally agree. And, if you look over on the funding side, for me, funding is always a leading indicator of, where the market is, and, how long the mainstream trends are going to remain mainstream. So the startup that gets, a $10 million round today is the, company that's, a $80 million, $100 million company 5 years from now selling that stuff. And so when there is investment in a startup, it is basically, a tacit recognition that you're investing in something that's going to be durable over time. So what have you seen from, your tracking of fundraising over the past few months, both in terms of the composition of the types of companies? Do you see any shifts there? And, what's your expectation for how the third quarter is going to come in?
Well, I mean, third quarter it's clearly way off even Q2. I think what the final numbers for Q2 were something like 6.6 billion in investment. And I think that we're probably going to be lucky to get a third of that this quarter. There certainly the large deals, the 100 million plus deals haven't been kind of popping the way that they were in previous quarters. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lag going on. And I think that we're going to see, well, we're already seeing a lot more acquisition and merger activity of companies that, essentially were kind of caught standing when the music stopped, trying to figure out how do I, cut the best deal to, preserve the company, whether that's an acquisition or a merger. But, we're still seeing a lot of, kind of the broad, kind of like, and I hate to use this word new economy, but basically like post 2020 economy type solutions, a lot of stuff, very international. How do you enable hybrid and remote workforces, a lot of industry vertical specific things, getting into things like earned wage access, those type of solutions. So a lot of the trends that we've been seeing are still very much at play. And like it just in terms of what was really the theme, at HR Tech was everything was around talent mobility, and is about how do you, kind of break down the different silos in your workforce to understand who do you have, who's performing, what are their career aspirations, how do you move talent strategically around your organization. And I think that just the, kind of the talent intelligence component to be able to have the data to make those decisions in real time is going to be continue to be in demand in the years to come.
Yeah, analytics is a huge area where there's just tons of kind of investment and activity right now. And when we go through this cycle, right, where like analytics become a thing, it's always a thing, but when it becomes like the thing, and it seems to me that tends to correlate with times of great uncertainty, when people are trying to figure out, big answers to really big shifts from a talent perspective. So you see a lot of talent analytics, being applied to just try to figure out, how to manage someone's productivity in a hybrid or remote environment, how to provide for their well-being, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that I've got two funny stories. Well, they're not really funny, but, maybe I can only remember one of the stories. I was at Taco Bell the other day. Bonnie's really into like these Taco Supreme things or whatever. Like kids will just be like, I love, Takis. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, never want to touch a Taki again. Or I only eat at Whataburger. And then suddenly they hate Whataburger. And now it's all Taco Bell. So I was driving by Taco Bell, and they had the sign on their drive-through window that said, start today, get paid today, daily pay. So they were using it as a primary, kind of, employer value proposition to get paid daily.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw a similar sign in front of a fast food restaurant, a couple blocks from my house. I actually took a picture of it because it really jumped out at me, because I don't know if this is a conscious marketing initiative on Daily Pay's part, but I think it's a good move. And certainly for, the service sector, which is still, hiring is still an incredible challenge. The ability to offer, essentially earned wage access is a pretty huge competitive advantage.
Yeah. And the second story was not really a funny story at all, but it was just more of a recognition that, we're at a moment where people are literally calling an end to the pandemic, right? Like some people are saying the pandemic is over. Some people are saying, wait, not so fast, but it's more about, do you agree or disagree that the pandemic is over than being considered like from another planet. If you said, the pandemic's over, let's get on with our lives. But as we kind of find ourselves in this new world, that looks a little bit more normal than it did, 6 months ago, year and a half ago, et cetera. You got a lot of people who, created hybrid work environments, remote work environments, said they were going to do that forever, said this is, the world has completely changed. This way everything's going to be. And now they're really, to go back to the analytics component, they're really like, well, do we have to do it that way? Because there are a lot of issues, unforeseen issues associated with big choices like that. Like, we've tracked not just in our own organization, but in other organizations as well, that in a remote environment, there's a lot of great, components associated with that work experience, but widespread reports of feelings of being disconnected, of occasional, feelings of isolation and loneliness. And people have been trying for a while now to address that in a remote and hybrid work environment with, varying degrees of success. And so now the question is, well, is the only way to fix that just getting, everybody back in the office again? And I think that's why we see a lot of, investment in solutions for hybrid and remote work, and a lot of investment in analytics organizations, because there's just so much information that needs to be, collected and understood about different aspects of the employee experience, which does include two of the pillars of employee experience are employee success and work experience. And, those are two different things. Employee success is, what does it take to support someone bringing their full selves to work? That's well-being, recognition, stuff like that. And the work experience is, what's my project planning tool? What's our workflow tool? The stuff that actually touches the work. And so I think that people are loath to make a really big shift in the work experience or in employee success without gathering information that's pertinent to, all the dimensions of the employee experience. Because, on the one hand, you can make a move that might, from an employee success perspective, make people feel better about their employee experience. On the other hand, that could have devastating consequences on the work experience and the ability to be productive and actually get work done. And so, I think there's a lot of evidence that that's going to be an area of investment and research and solutions for a decade or more, because nobody's really got it figured out.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that you're seeing a lot of investment flow into early stage companies now running straight at that problem. Because, what's clear is that, and there's clearly a lot of benefits to work from anywhere, hybrid work, whatever its manifestation is. But it's clear that in a full remote environment, there is a problem of culture building, and there's also a problem of building organizational commitment with an individual employee. And without getting those individuals together with their colleagues and coworkers, not necessarily in an office, but getting them together, I don't know that there is a way to, from a software or a digital only perspective, a way to crack that nut. And what's interesting is I had a great conversation in HR Tech with a company that specializes in remote work called Velocity Global, and they've gotten buku funding, really cool company. And they were talking about how they kind of address that issue in their own workforce, where it's just like they have these team assignments where, say, a team of 5 or 6 or 7 people want to get together and work on a problem, but you want to do that from a beach house in Portugal. Well, great. Yeah. We'll go ahead and pay for that, week or 2 or 3, but you have to get the team there. You have to agree what you're going to work on, what you're going to accomplish. And then what I thought was a really cool part of it is, if you're, looking at a 5-day work week, one day of your work week has to be doing something locally to put, basically, I don't know whether it's charitable work, something back into the community that you're in. You can't just be taking stuff out. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. Yeah. And I think that's, one potential way to address that problem without just saying everybody's got to go back to the office.
Well, yeah. And it's basically flexible teaming, right? And then providing the support that's necessary to bring people together in collaboration. One of the things that, the theories that we've been exploring is that feelings of being disconnected and feelings of isolation and loneliness are not a separate issue from not having enough time to collaborate. Right. And if you can create more collaboration opportunities where people are, put together on, cross-functional teams or, whatever, depending on what the dynamic of, your work environment is, that it actually solves both problems, kind of simultaneously. It, eliminates the collaboration deficit that's created in the remote work environment or the hybrid environment. But it also, kind of satisfies what a lot of people, I think, have framed as a social, kind of a component of, hey, people need to feel, connected and, when, to the coworkers. So let's have a trivia night, let's focus on, employee success kind of stuff. But those are not different things. In fact, people, when they get together and work on stuff, they're actually enjoying themselves as well. It's not like they, kind of say, well, we can't have fun because we're working. They're getting a lot of, that part of the equation solved as well. But, if we go back to this theory that investment in startups specifically is a leading indicator of what the market's going to look like, 5-10 years from now, and gives us a glimpse of what, mainstream looks like in work tech. I'll tell you what I haven't seen, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't seen a lot of investment in, startups that have traditional integrated talent management type solutions that look like, the solutions that we saw in, when the integrated talent management world was created. I don't see a lot of investment in, new talent acquisition solutions. I don't see a lot of investment in performance management, new performance management solutions, et cetera. I see a ton of investment in, solutions that go right to the heart of what's the world of work look like now, and, what new opportunities and what new challenges do we have? Has that been your experience?
Well, there's been a ton of investment going into, at least in the first half of the year, into talent acquisition.
Yeah.
And so it really has long been sort of the traditional leader in investment. Any given year, roughly a third of investment would be going into talent acquisition. That really changed in 2020, where it fell way back in the pack. That bounced back in 2021, carried into the first couple of quarters of this year, and now has dipped again. I think that there's a lot of interest in performance management, but I think that there's a lot of skepticism about whether or not it's really changed its stripes, has it really changed from, the early days of success factors? Is it still basically the same solution, just, repackaged? There was even an article in the Wall Street Journal about that last week, just talking about how there is really a lot of dread about the return of performance management, but it's being driven by exactly who you think it would be. It's by, CEOs, top down, command and control, who want to drive, accountability within an organization, which there's nothing wrong with that. But when you think about the need to increase collaboration time, and if you're thinking you need to increase collaboration time, and you're looking at ways to kill meetings and get non-value added activities out of the workday, but then you're inserting performance management and goal alignment and all that, it's just like, it's sort of like, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of my point. There's investment in talent acquisition and performance management, but it doesn't look like the talent acquisition solution or the performance management solution of the past cycle. And so they're more innovative solutions with, kind of very specific, in most cases, like it will, a solution that, finally addresses, diversity, equity, inclusion in the hiring process, right? Or it'll be something that's uniquely associated with, kind of, as Harry Styles would say, a sign of the times. I saw Harry Styles in concert a couple of days ago.
You said he was good.
I took my daughter and her friend, and Jennifer and I went, and I was, kind of in the chaperone mindset. Mm-hmm. And I realized during the show that it was the greatest rock concert I've ever seen in my life. And that it may have been because it's the first time that I actually saw a band in the period that they were building their fame. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go see Paul McCartney when he came through town. I'll go see Kiss. I'll go see, great bands, but they're, harken back to the 90s and before. Yeah. This is the first time I've seen a full on, Beatlemania, pop experience. And it was an incredible show. But what else was interesting about that show is I thought it offered a glimpse of, like what a beautiful future looks like, because the crowd, is mostly younger people. But talk about, diversity and inclusion. I mean, this was, a big group of people who all look different. We're all brought together by, their love of Harry Styles and the whole message and everything that he does, from what he wears. You would have loved his outfit, by the way. It was a University of Texas cheerleader outfit. You have to look it up online. He had like orange tassels like coming down, like it was the male version, with like the orange pants and the tassels coming down off his arms and everything. But people went crazy for it. But you can see the, just the advancement of, people from different walks of life getting together in a productive way that's not based on, anything other than, a beautiful view of what the future could be. I think that does, have a significant bearing on what the workforce of the future is going to look like and what people's expectations are I guarantee you half of the crowd there, is either, in college or just out of college and, applying for jobs and interviewing with companies. And if they look around and it doesn't look like a Harry Styles concert in terms of the diversity they see, then it's not going to be interesting to them,
Right.
Which I think is great. So why did I bring up Harry Styles? I can't remember.
You just mentioned Harry Styles, so we had to talk about Harry Styles.
Oh, yeah. I think it was a sign of the times that, basically there's two pieces of, yes, I think things are going to be tight for work tech companies for a few months here. And it's always the uncertainty that's the problem. It's not like the reality, it's the uncertainty. So we're in that period of uncertainty. So, I think that one thing, that I think people need to take to heart is that, as always, it's a great opportunity to double down as other people are kind of pulling back, because you get to, kind of control the narrative. You get, more share of voice in your advertising. It makes a huge difference when you're increasing your market, which we have a lot of clients who are doing this right now, increasing your marketing at the same time that the bigger players are pulling back because they experience more of the macroeconomic pressures of having to show that they're responding to, kind of the public sentiment around what the future holds. Their stock share or their stock price will go up or down based on shareholders' perspectives of whether they are navigating the, whatever people think is coming well or not. So it's a huge opportunity because they're the biggest spenders in advertising.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
No, you're probably going to say the same thing I am.
Well, now I was going to move on to the, kind of second point, which is, but as you're establishing that narrative, look at what's happening in funding right now. Look at the types of companies that are predicting what the market's going to look like, 5 to 10 years from now. And it's going to be a different work tech. It's not going to be like the work tech that we have now. So everyone talks about tech debt. Everyone talks about, the problems associated with your solution growing, bringing on more users, et cetera. And there's these parts of the solution that are like, dark closets that no one has gone into in years, and they're filled with junk, and you got to get the junk out and all that stuff. But not a lot of people think about the need for, addressing the vision debt around what their, solution their company is going to be providing in the future as the, work tech environment is rapidly changing. So I think people need to take a hard look at what they are bringing to market and ask themselves if that's a declining market or a vibrant market. And if they're in a declining market, it's going to fall off the shelf at some point. And so they need to, kind of figure out where they fit into the, the future of work tech.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to remember that great companies and great brands come out of downturns. Every time, you go back through, look at 2020, you look at, the great financial crisis, you go at 2001, that's the genesis of billion-dollar brands and billion-dollar companies. And so I have no doubt that whatever we're in the midst of will spawn some great companies. And I think to try to bring all this around to a positive note, the investment bankers that I talked with at HR Tech all kind of shared the sentiment that, looking at the expo hall and seeing there were, I think, more exhibitors than SHRM. It's, I think, the biggest HR Tech ever. It was huge. But they were all had two observations about it. Number one, there's a lot of CMOs that are going to probably have to answer some tough questions to CFOs in the near term about, why did you go out and put X amount of money into Y amount of exhibiting and what did you get for it? But then more long term, there's definitely a sense that we get back to market conditions where IPOs are possible. There's probably a half a dozen or a dozen companies in work tech that look great on paper that are ready to pop. Yeah. And when that happens, and there's already, I think, there was an article in the Information the other day, there's something like $290 billion worth of dry powder out there ready to invest. Yeah. There's, I think, the potential that you fast forward to 24 or 25, and you could see an investment year that could dwarf, 2020 and 2021 with those kind of conditions.
Yeah. And I'll also, just say from, So that's the investment side. That's the investment perspective. We're still not at the, the top of the curve in terms of, growth and work tech investment and the number of things that are going to be brought into work tech because work tech is becoming the center of the tech stack for organizations. But also, most of the categories that I track are growing anywhere between 15 to 25% compound annual growth rate right now. And so while there may be a short run, downturn in pipeline conversion, and that's happened a couple of times over the past couple of years, just based on uncertainty. It bounces back in a significant way, 2 or 3 months later. And so all these categories are still growing. We still believe it's going to be, and this is proving to be true, the highest, most significant period of solution turnover in history, where people are replacing, one whole technology ecosystem with a whole new technology ecosystem. And so these companies are going to perform well. And just performing average inside a work tech segment, is pretty good right now. And it's pretty straightforward with the right formula to actually outperform the average in those areas. And, there's so many companies out there that are growing 100, 200, 300% on big numbers annually. And so I'm incredibly optimistic. And I just, I love, I'm going to sound callous when I say this, but I love moments like this because they create so much opportunity. And a lot of times the cream rises to the top in moments like this because, frankly, a lot of people who pull back are the ones with the oldest, mainstream solutions and the largest companies. And it kind of creates some oxygen for other people to, breathe and get a story out. So I'm, it's an important part of the cycle. I'll put it that way.
No, I much agree with that.
Right on, man. Well, great conversation. Mm-hmm. Happy to talk to you today.
Thanks for sharing all of your Harry Styles insights.
I'm telling you, man, it was a great show.
No, I don't doubt it. The man is a fascinating entertainer.
He really is. Really is. Go see Harry Styles. You're going to find people waiting in line for like 2 days to get in. But
no, there's this thing called StubHub. You just go there and run your credit card. It's fine.
Yeah, just tape your credit card to the StubHub website and just leave it there. All right, man. It's good talking to you. Take it easy.
Good talking to you.